Okay, so you want to own a jewelry store. You've pictured it already. The velvet trays under warm halogen light. A woman crying happy tears when her fiancé slides a ring across the glass counter. Your name in gold script above the door of a strip mall, or better, a real Main Street. Brick and awnings, the kind of place people photograph for their engagement announcement. You imagine yourself behind the counter in a tailored blazer, calling regular customers by name, watching a $20,000 sale close in 15 minutes because someone's anniversary is Friday and money is not the object. This is what jewelry ownership sells you. Old money smell, trust, margins that feel obscene because a rock that cost you $400 just sold for $4,000. Here's what the listing doesn't show you. It doesn't show you the $180,000 to $650,000 in dead inventory sitting in your safe right now, paid for in full, earning zero interest, waiting for a customer who may not walk in this month. It doesn't show you the $9,000 to $22,000 a year you'll pay just to ensure that inventory against theft, because jewelry stores are robbed at a rate almost no other retail category matches. It doesn't show you that the average independent jewelry store in America does not clear six figures in owner profit. Most clear less than a school teacher after 50 and 60-hour weeks. And it doesn't show you the ugliest number of all. In a bad year, a single smash and grab robbery can erase 18 months of profit in under 90 seconds. Jewelry retail is one of the most misunderstood business models in America. On the outside, it looks like glamour, trust, and fat margins. On the inside, it looks like a capital-intensive, security-obsessed, cash flow-starved business where you are, in effect, running a small private bank made of diamonds, and the vault door is the only thing standing between you and ruin. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly why jewelry stores can make certain owners wealthy over a decade, and why they quietly bankrupt others in year 3, and why the difference almost never comes down to taste or product or even location. Category breakdown. Jewelry store is actually an umbrella term for at least 5 very different businesses wearing the same storefront. There's the independent fine jewelry retailer, the classic Main Street shop selling engagement rings, watches, and estate pieces. There's the mall chain franchise model, built on financing plans and walk-in traffic. There's the pawn-adjacent jeweler, which blends new sales with buying and reselling gold and estate pieces. There's a custom design studio, which sells almost no off-the-shelf inventory and instead sells labor and design fees. There's a luxury boutique carrying branded lines like Cartier or Tiffany under strict dealership agreements. And there's the online-first jeweler, which skips the storefront almost entirely and competes on price and shipping speed. These 5 or 6 models share a superficial identity: glass cases, precious metals, the emotional purchase. But they have almost nothing in common financially. A mall chain lives and dies by financing approval rates. A boutique carrying a luxury brand doesn't even set its own prices. The brand does. A custom design studio has almost no dead inventory, but sells time, not product. This script is going to focus on the independent fine jewelry retailer. The standalone storefront selling engagement rings, wedding band, and fashion jewelry, usually family-owned or first-generation owned. It's the most common entry point for someone dreaming of owning a jewelry store, and it's also the model with the most brutal, least forgiving economics, because unlike the boutique or the chain, you carry every dollar of risk yourself. The big number that gets bigger. The primary cost driver in jewelry retail isn't the building, it's the inventory sitting inside it. A serious independent jewelry store needs somewhere between $300,000 and $1.2 million in starting inventory just to look credible to a walk-in customer. In a lower-cost secondary market, say a mid-sized city in the Midwest or the South, you can open a respectable store with roughly $350,000 to $500,000 in inventory. In a competitive coastal market, Los Angeles, the New York metro area, South Florida, that same credibility threshold jumps to $700,000 to $1.1 million because customers in those markets expect deeper diamond selections, more carat weight variety, and branded watch lines that alone can run $150,000 to $300,000 just to stock a handful of display pieces. Here's why the cheap option is deceptive. A $350,000 starting inventory in a low-cost market sounds efficient, but usually means a thinner selection which means more special orders, which means slower closing times and more customers walking to a competitor with a deeper case. Cheap inventory in jewelry doesn't just mean less product. It means less ability to close the exact ring a customer already has in their head. And in engagement ring sales, the customer who doesn't find the one, in your case today, very often doesn't come back. Let's do the math on a realistic serious scale operation. Say you're opening in a mid-tier suburban market. Inventory, $550,000. Point of sale and inventory management systems, $12,000. Initial security infrastructure, safes, cameras, alarm monitoring, $65,000. First year lease and build out for a 1,200 square foot storefront, $180,000. Licensing, insurance, bonds, and gemological certification fees, $28,000. Working capital cushion to survive the first slow year, $150,000. Total to open the doors, just under $985,000. The price of the inventory and the profitability of the jewelry store are two completely different numbers. Spending $1 million to open does not guarantee the store generates enough net profit to justify that million. Plenty of jewelry stores open beautifully financed and close 5 years later, having never once turned real owner profit. The infrastructure trap, the listing price, the lease, the inventory quote, never includes what it actually costs to make a jewelry store operational and insurable. There are 5 categories of invisible setup costs that blindside almost every first-time owner. Security infrastructure. This isn't optional in jewelry retail. Insurers require it. UL-rated safes rated for jewelry storage run $8,000 to $35,000, depending on capacity. A full camera and alarm system with central monitoring and glass break sensors runs another $15,000 to $40,000. Bullet-resistant display case upgrades, increasingly required by insurers in high-theft markets, add $20,000 to $60,000 more. Gemological and appraisal equipment. A working lab setup. Microscopes, diamond testers, refractometers. A scale certified for precious metals. Runs $8,000 to $18,000. If you want an in-house graduate gemologist rather than outsourcing certification, add $55,000 to $75,000 in annual salary. Insurance and bonding. Jeweler's block insurance, which covers inventory against theft and damage, is not like standard retail insurance. Premiums run $9,000 to $22,000 annually for a store carrying $500,000 to $1 million in stock, and that's before liability coverage and bonding for any custom design or repair work, which adds another $3,000 to $7,000. Staff training and certification. A single experienced sales associate with GIA Gemology training commands $45,000 to $65,000 a year in salary alone, before commission. Most stores need 2 to 4 staff members to cover hours, meaning payroll infrastructure of $150,000 to $260,000 annually before the owner takes a dollar. Repair and custom work infrastructure. If you offer resizing, repair, or custom design in-house, which most successful independent stores do, because it drives repeat visits, you need a bench jeweler setup. Torches, ventilation, polishing equipment, casting tools. That's another $25,000 to $45,000, plus a bench jeweler salary of $50,000 to $70,000. Add it up, and you get $180,000 to $475,000 in setup and first-year infrastructure costs before the jewelry business is even fully operational, on top of the inventory and lease numbers from the last section. The operating costs daily bleed. Here's the structural problem nobody explains to a first-time jewelry store owner. Revenue arrives seasonally. Expenses arrive daily. Roughly 30% to 40% of an independent jewelry store's annual revenue happens in a 6-week window around the holidays, plus a secondary bump around Valentine's Day and graduation season. Rent, payroll, insurance, and utilities don't pause for the other 10 months. Labor is typically the largest recurring cost, running $220,000 to $340,000 annually for a modest 4-person staff, including the owner's own salary draw. Insurance, as covered, runs $9,000 to $22,000 a year, but that's before umbrella coverage for high-value custom pieces, which can add another $4,000 to $9,000. Maintenance, case repairs, safe servicing, alarm system contracts, security guard shifts during high-traffic seasons typically runs $15,000 to $35,000 annually. And inventory carrying cost, meaning the interest paid on finance inventory through a jewelry trade credit line, runs 6% to 11% annually on whatever portion of the $500,000 plus inventory is financed rather than owned outright, often another $20,000 to $45,000 a year in pure interest. According to the Jewelers of America Trade Association's most recent operational benchmarking report, the average independent jewelry store operates on a net margin between 2% and 6%, among the thinnest of any specialty retail category tracked. Source 2024. The revenue model, the part that has to work. The core transaction is simple. You buy precious metal and stones at wholesale, mark them up, and sell them at retail, usually at a Keystone Plus markup of 2 to 2.5 times cost on fine jewelry, though engagement rings and branded watches often carry thinner margins because customers price shop those categories aggressively. Let's run a full work example for a mid-tier independent store. Say the store sells 480 pieces in a year at an average ticket of $2,100. That's gross revenue of $1,008,000. Cost of goods sold, at roughly 55% of retail, on a blended average across engagement rings, fashion jewelry, and repairs, is $554,400. That leaves gross profit of $453,600. Now subtract the operating costs from the last section: labor, insurance, maintenance, financing, interest, rent, and utilities, totaling roughly $420,000 for a store this size. Net profit, $33,600 on gross revenue over $1 million, and on total capital deployed north of $900,000. That's a return on invested capital of roughly 3.7% in a good year, and that's before the owner has paid themselves a market rate salary for 60-hour weeks. Once you factor in a fair owner salary draw, many independent jewelry stores are running at break-even or worse in their profit and loss statement, even while the owner feels successful because the store looks full and busy. A savings account at a credit union pays more. The volatility/risk factor. The single biggest external risk factor in jewelry retail is the price of gold and diamonds themselves, a commodity market completely outside the owner's control. When gold prices spike, as they did sharply through 2024 and into 2025, the cost to replace sold inventory rises immediately, but the owner often can't raise retail prices as fast because customers compare against last year's sticker price in their head. A store that needs to replenish $200,000 of gold-based inventory can suddenly need the twist: why the rich still buy these? If independent jewelry retail is so financially marginal, why do wealthy families keep buying and holding these businesses for generations? You'll find multi-generational jewelry families behind some of the most enduring private retail names in American cities. Families who never sold, never took outside investors, and appear from the outside to be simply in the jewelry business the way their grandfather was. The real reasons rarely show up on the storefront sign. First, inventory is an inflation hedge. Unlike cash sitting in a bank account, a safe full of gold and diamonds appreciates with commodity prices, meaning the dead inventory that looks like a liability on paper is quietly a store value that beats inflation most years. Second, real estate appreciation. Many multi-generational jewelry families own their storefront buildings outright, and decades of downtown or Main Street appreciation has made the real estate worth several times what the jewelry business itself ever earned. Third, a specific inventory tax mechanism. Jewelers who structure their inventory financing through trade credit lines can often depreciate certain fixtures, security systems, and even portions of aged inventory categorized as slow-moving for tax purposes, shielding a meaningful slice of otherwise taxable income. Here's the tax mechanism in a concrete example. A family jewelry business carrying $1.5 million in inventory and fixtures can often claim accelerated depreciation and inventory write-down deductions totaling $300,000 to $450,000 over a rolling multi-year cycle.